A housewife and mom disappears from her home in the middle of the night.
From what I saw, this was a prolonged, vicious, violent event.
A massive hunt for the missing woman and her attacker leads to a suspect close to home.
He just seemed like a happy-go-lucky young man. No one said, oh, we knew this guy was going to end up killing people.
Then, a murder in Eugene, Oregon stuns the quiet university town.
You have Eugene's first gangland or gang-related slang.
But there's more to this murder than meets the eye.
Just let me know, and if I receive any more tips, I will also let you know.
One of those cases that you would never forget.
December 9th, 1995. Bonnie Sanborn, a 41-year-old mother of 3, is missing from her Tucson, Arizona home. It is all too clear that someone took her away by force. Extreme force.
From what I saw, this was a prolonged, vicious, violent event.
There is blood everywhere, sprayed across the walls and ceiling, and soaking the bedding.
The amount of blood in the bedroom, the amount of splatter on the walls and on the windows, and the way the blood spatters were evident in that room led us to believe that Bonnie had been attacked while she was asleep in bed.
Detectives find only a few clues. Several dark hairs matted with blood, and a button that doesn't appear to match any of her clothes.
The where it was located and the manner it was sitting there, it appeared to us that it may have happened in that struggle.
Investigators follow the blood out through the sliding glass door and across the backyard. There are no drag marks, so Bonnie was most likely carried by her assailant.
It was our initial assumption that it had to be at least an individual stronger than Bonnie, but she was very, very petite. She was very short and didn't weigh very much.
The trail of blood ends in the garage, where detectives discover Bonnie's car is also missing.
And then it was presumed that she was placed into the car, her vehicle, which was a light blue metallic Chrysler New Yorker, because that car was also missing.
Bonnie's daughter, Candace, was 13 at the time. She had called 911 after entering her mother's bedroom.
Where's my mom?
We're gonna find her, Candace.
First thing I thought is, what the heck happened? You could tell something bad, but it never crossed my mind, you know, my mom, you know, was really, really hurt. It never crossed my mind at that point. It didn't.
Who could possibly have a reason to kidnap Bonnie Sanborn? Detectives find no evidence of a high-risk lifestyle. Bonnie is a down-to-earth working mother, nothing more.
She was not dealing drugs. She was not associated with gangs, not doing anything illegal, which a large percentage of our homicide victims are in that lifestyle. And she wasn't.
But now, Bonnie has inexplicably disappeared, and investigators are determined to find her. Locating Bonnie's car is their best bet.
We immediately got with the local media and put out what was going on, that we were working a missing person case under suspicious circumstances. We focused on the car.
It's a 1989 Chrysler New Yorker.
Saying that we are looking for any information on this car, and of course gave the appropriate warnings for no one to approach the car if they see it.
Soon, Bonnie Sanborn is the focus of a full-on media blitz.
Detective Ferrier.
I think I saw the car that you guys were looking for.
It works. A man watching the news sees the story and calls in the tip investigators have been hoping for.
And a gentleman who just happens to walk in a certain desert area saw the car and called the sheriff's department.
The tip is good. Detectives find Bonnie's car, but they're too late. Bonnie is already dead.
She was in the back seat, and her lower half of her body she was naked and exposed.
It's a horrific scene. Bonnie is bound with plastic flex ties and gagged with a sock. The pathologist finds 18 sharp-edged wounds to her head. They are grim testimony to the ferocity of the attack. Bonnie didn't die easily.
She tried to fight off her attacker. There were a number of defensive wounds to her hands and to her forearm.
While it is clear that Bonnie has been sexually assaulted, no trace of semen is visible on her body, but an ultraviolet light reveals a crucial clue.
We were able to see under a black light one very, very small drop of what everybody believed at that point was semen.
There's enough to provide a DNA profile, but it's totally useless without a suspect. Now, the questions everyone wants answered. Who would want to kill Bonnie Sanborn, and what would fuel such a vicious, frenzied attack?
Bonnie Sanborn was well liked by everyone who knew her, and her coworkers and her friends had nothing but praise for her outgoingness, her friendliness, her easy laughter, and her devotion to her family.
Investigators dig into Bonnie's life, looking for answers.
Is there anybody you can think of, anybody who'd have the motive to hurt her?
It's pretty standard in a homicide investigation that, you're obviously looking at what was going on in the victim's life. And you're dealing with, family and friends and coworkers, things along those lines.
The first thing detectives are forced to consider is the unthinkable. Bonnie's 13-year-old daughter might somehow be involved.
Candace, we have some questions for you. We need you to be honest with us, all right? Good morning.
Before calling 911, Candace had moved things around in her mother's bloodied bedroom, picked up her purse, even left a handprint on a pillow.
When you went in that morning, why'd you move things around?
I was just looking for my mom.
The questions that they were asking me was ridiculous, totally ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about?
Did you kill your mother?
No!
No, I didn't hurt my mom. No, I didn't, put my mom, kill her or whatever. No, of course not. Why would you be asking me that?
Detectives rule out Bonnie's daughter. It's clear that Candace is severely traumatized and trying to grasp the horror she encountered. But somebody is responsible for this nightmare. Who is it?
We were looking at possibly someone who had familiarity with the house. They were confident enough to enter onto the property and try that back sliding glass door. We always felt that whoever it was familiar with the layout of the house, comfortable moving around in dimly lit or dark spaces in the home.
Detectives find out that Bonnie's eldest son, age 16, is running with a local gang. And that is where they find their first promising lead. The day before she was murdered, Bonnie discovered her son and another gang member had stolen a couple of payphones.
Bobby, what are you doing?
They were in the oldest son's room, and they were trying to break into these phones to get the change out.
Bonnie felt she had no choice but to call the police.
I'd like to report my son is vandalizing a payphone.
And her son was arrested.
We know you run around with a lot of crazy guys. This gang you're into?
And he spent the evening in juvenile detention, though associates of his did not. And so they were out and about on that night.
Perhaps her son's gang kidnapped, raped, and murdered Bonnie in revenge for the bust.
They were very upset that Mrs. Sanborn had essentially turned her son and one of the other gang members in. So we were looking along those lines and went out and interviewed all of those gang members.
One of them, a gang member named Jeremy, seems to have an appetite for violence.
He would use crack cocaine often and at parties, and then he would remove a knife that he carried on his person at all times, and he would stab himself all over the side of the head.
Maybe Jeremy's taste for violence has escalated into murder. Investigators track him down. Their interest shifts into high gear.
Guess you're pretty pissed off at Bonnie Sanborn for calling the cops on you guys, huh?
You think I care? Do you think nobody ever called the cops on me?
We found him to be wearing a shirt that appeared to us, to the naked eye, so to speak, to have similar buttons on it, and it was missing a couple buttons.
Could the missing buttons on his shirt be the ones found in Bonnie's room? Have detectives zeroed in on the killer? The day after 41-year-old Bonnie Sanborn is abducted, detectives discover she has been sexually assaulted and murdered. They soon link evidence found in her bedroom to Jeremy, a knife-wielding gang member known for drug-fueled violence.
We were able to take possession of his clothing item, shirt, and we sent that to the FBI lab along with that button.
If it's determined that the button comes from Jeremy's shirt, he faces immediate arrest.
Took a little bit of time for them to come back, but it was not a match on the button. We also took DNA from him, and that eliminated him from being the donor of the semen on the back of her leg.
Back to square one.
Detectives dismiss Jeremy as a suspect and move on. Bonnie's husband is another person of interest in the case.
Whenever a spouse is murdered, the other spouse or ex-spouse or ex-partner, whatever it happens to be, is always the first place law enforcement looks, because the odds are that's who it is.
Mr. Sanborn, I Appreciate you coming in here today.
Do you have any idea who did this?
We're following up on a few different things.
Detectives learn that Bonnie's husband works full-time on the East Coast and comes home 2 weekends each month. The weekend Bonnie was killed wasn't one of Mr. Sanborn's scheduled visits, but that doesn't clear him.
Do you have any witnesses who can verify where you were that weekend?
We had to be able to prove that he was where he said he was, and he didn't have that window of opportunity to have come back to Tucson, committed this crime, and then left Tucson and gotten back to work undetected.
Investigators find plenty of flights from the East Coast that Mr. Sanborn could secretly have taken, but there's no evidence he was on any of them. More importantly, he has no motive.
We began to look at the husband, to look at things along the lines of, is there a financial benefit if his wife dies? What kind of insurance is in place?
She had a life insurance policy, but they didn't appear to be in financial need, and he didn't have anything going on the side that he needed to extricate himself from this relationship in order to accomplish.
Bonnie's husband is cleared. The investigation stalls. 9 months go by.
Detective Faust.
Then a tip from local police points investigators to another possible suspect, someone they've run into before. A 40-year-old drug dealer named Lyle Winstead, with a taste for knives and violence.
They were concerned that he sold drugs to a variety of the people that were associated with this case, and that he had made some statements that were concerning to them.
When detectives question Lyle, he's visibly nervous. Some of the things he says sound strange and somewhat suspicious.
Maybe it wasn't a bad guy. Maybe it was just a bad trip.
To detectives, it sounds as if Lyle is making an excuse for someone, probably himself.
He's got a violent past, and then was making statements like that. And it was one of the first people that you finally got, and you looked at him and said, I could see this guy doing this kind of a crime.
Like the other potential suspects, Lyle provides a sample of his DNA.
The DNA did clear him from responsibility, and so we moved on after dealing with him.
Investigators are out of suspects who are even remotely connected to Bonnie. Perhaps a total stranger took her life.
And so we were continually running the DNA profile against all of the known sex offenders that we had to see if any of those had committed this crime. Nothing was coming up.
After 10 months of chasing down leads, interviewing potential suspects, and testing DNA, detectives have come up empty-handed.
We'd done so much work at that point, and we're really back to no viable suspects again.
In a last-ditch effort to keep the inquiry alive, investigators re-interview Bonnie's family.
Can you think of anybody that we haven't talked about? Someone might be totally off the wall.
So when you go back and talk to them with a different frame of mind, with a different perspective, and time has passed, folks tend to remember things that they wouldn't have remembered early on in the case.
Franklin, he's a guy we bowled with.
Yeah, there's this one guy, Rick.
What about Freddie?
Bonnie's family suggests a handful of people who haven't yet been interviewed, but all are long shots at best.
You know, I think I gave you everybody that I could possibly come up with.
They threw out several names, and nothing real concrete, just, well, you know, here's a person that maybe you want to go talk to. And a lot of times they couldn't even articulate why we should go talk to him. But, you know, the names were written down. We said, we're going to go talk to him.
Investigators follow up and get DNA samples from all of the people Bonnie's family named. They send the samples to the lab, but they have no way of knowing they're on the brink of a stunning breakthrough.
We have a DNA match.
For more than a year, detectives in Tucson, Arizona have been trying to find out who kidnapped, raped, and murdered 41-year-old Bonnie Sanborn. Their best clue is a tiny drop of DNA found on Bonnie's body. The detectives play their last card, testing DNA from a handful of unlikely suspects suggested by Bonnie's family. If none pan out, her killer may never be brought to justice.
Detective Faust.
When the results come back, the case is thrust in a new direction.
We have a DNA match.
It's Frederick Royval, a young man well known to Bonnie and her family.
He just seemed like a a happy-go-lucky young man. So when I finally clicked on who he was, I was really kind of shocked and surprised. School officials, other friends, no one said, oh, we knew this guy was the, crazy kid that was going to end up killing people.
Roy Val was a popular student and athlete in high school. He has no criminal record and no history of violence. He had lived right across the street from Bonnie for a number of years.
I know he came over one time, I think with his dad, to do some home repairs.
Frederick Roy Val seems a very unusual suspect, but as investigators dig into his background, they find there's more to Roy Val than meets the eye. The young man has problems with drugs and alcohol. It also seems he's attracted to older women.
On a neighbor. Wow.
He had a relationship with an older woman in the neighborhood, a consensual type relationship.
Another story cranks up detectives' interest in Frederick Roy Val.
They had heard a rumor that Freddie thought Bonnie was very attractive.
The DNA test is irrefutable evidence Roy Val had sexual contact with Bonnie Sanborn, but it's not, by itself, evidence he killed her. Perhaps Roy Val was having a secret affair with Bonnie. If so, it's possible Roy Val had sex with Bonnie and someone else killed her soon after. It's a question that detectives have to resolve, and only Frederick Roy Val has the answer.
And we got your semen there. I think this is it. But you need to think real hard and you need to tell me about it. I don't know, sir. I didn't do nothing.
He kept insisting there was a mistake and just kept denying it.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't remember. I don't know.
But detectives do know. If Roy Val's DNA didn't get on Bonnie through a consensual affair, then he's the killer. And Roy Val denies he had any such affair.
I wasn't there, no.
At that point, the decision was made that we'd try to ramp it up a little bit, and we would, basically kind of confront him, really. And that's what we did.
Detective Bob Ferrier, the lead investigator on the case, puts a picture of Bonnie on the table in front of Roy Val.
Pretty good-looking lady, huh? She was, huh?
Then, Ferrier ratchets up the pressure.
We brought in a photograph of the victim that we had blown up of the way we found her in the back seat of the car.
That's how I found her. That was your semen right there.
You could see a definite change in that point. And Mr. Rovell, he kind of pushes back from the table and very emotional at that point.
I want a lawyer. I don't want to do this no more. Okay. I can't handle this. For you to arrest me.
There's a point where you realize this person's just not gonna confess to the crime. It's not gonna happen. And that's where we're at. We just told him to stand up and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for first-degree murder.
Frederick Roy Val is facing charges of kidnapping, 2 counts of sexual assault, and first-degree murder. To avoid the death penalty, Roy Val cuts a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for life in prison, he agrees never to appeal his verdict. Investigators finally have a better understanding of what happened to Bonnie Sanborn. In the early morning hours of December 9, 1995, Frederick Roy Val crosses the street to Bonnie Sanborn's house for the sole purpose of sexually assaulting her.
He went over with a chipping hammer, and he went over with some devices to restrain somebody with.
Roy Val discovers that the sliding glass door leading into the bedroom is unlocked. He pushes it open, and he's in.
She woke up, she heard a noise, and she inquired who was there in the dark, and Mr. Roy Val immediately attacked her at that point.
Roy Val leaps onto Bonnie. She fights back. He hits her with the chipping hammer, spraying arcs of blood across the walls and onto the ceiling.
Her hands were bound. She was no longer struggling, and obviously she had been silenced.
Roy Val carries Bonnie out of the house and into the garage. He puts Bonnie in her car and drives to the desert at the edge of town and parks. He rapes the dying woman. Inadvertently, he lets a drop of semen fall onto the back of Bonnie's leg. Roy Val has no idea it's there. No idea it will forever tie him to the rape and murder of Bonnie Sanborn. Coming up next, a murder in Eugene, Oregon shocks the quiet university town. And so does the killer.
One of those cases that you would never forget.
October 3rd, 1994.
Help! Help!
In Eugene, Oregon, Janice Itura is awakened by screams from her 18-year-old son's bedroom.
Help!
I go in there, and his girlfriend is screaming, and she said, I don't know, they did something to Aaron.
Aaron Itura is unconscious and bleeding profusely.
I rolled him over, and he had a bash on the top of his forehead.
Paramedics arrive and quickly determine that the bash is actually a bullet wound.
The next thing I knew, I found out that he had got shot.
9 hours later, Aaron Itura dies. For Detective Jim Mashad, the crime scene offers little evidence. No prints, no gun, nothing to identify the killer. Plus, the bedroom is easy to break into.
It was a makeshift bedroom in the garage. They just set up a false wall in the garage and put a box mattress on the floor.
Mashad searches for suspects. He starts with those in the Itura home.
I need to test for gunpowder residue on your hands.
But tests for gunshot residue are negative.
We took a look at that and determined that no one there was actually involved in it.
Something doesn't add up. Aaron is dead, but his girlfriend wasn't hurt at all.
It was significant that someone's lying right next to the bed and does not get shot.
Is there a reason she was spared?
Our thoughts there were that maybe there was some ex-boyfriend or current boyfriend that was jealous.
Investigators don't find anyone who fits that profile. It begins to look more and more like an execution killing. But why?
Hi, Mashad and Homicide?
Detectives check Aaron's background. They find a possible motive. Aaron had been associating with members of a gang, the 74 Hoover Crips.
They were active with some auto theft, burglary, particularly for guns. What they would do is trade their stolen property for drugs.
At 6'5" and 250 pounds, Aaron was an imposing presence.
A lot of the kids were afraid of him. He had that persona, the tough guy persona, and so he was becoming this kind of negative leader in school.
But Aaron was no gangbanger. In fact, he was active in an anti-gang movement.
He was actually now becoming a spokesman for fighting that urge to become an antisocial criminal and started to use his negative experience in a positive way in the school environment.
Aaron was everybody's best friend. He had kids in the neighborhood that came over all the time, and if there was a problem, Aaron would go help them out.
Was Aaron killed for standing up to the gangbangers? It's the most likely motive investigators have found yet.
The Joint Gang Task Force, after hearing that Itura had been murdered, said that they thought that it might have some gang activity angle to it.
And if you hear anything at all, please give me a call back. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
The people of Eugene, home of the University of Oregon, known for its laid-back atmosphere, are horrified.
The community was shocked at Aaron's murder. You had Eugene's first gangland or gang-related slang.
In fact, the city only recently learned it even has a gang problem.
Gangs in Eugene in the early to mid-90s was kind of an emerging problem. There were small groups that were ganging up and exhibiting that behavior.
But it only takes one to shoot a gun. Investigators start tracking down Aaron's gang associates. As they dig deeper, they cross paths with a local activist named Mary Thompson. She and Aaron are part of the same anti-gang task force.
She was speaking out, trying to help the community avoid the dangers of gangs proliferating in the community.
Mary's a fixture on local TV and in the papers.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Mary, how you
How are you?
She was well-spoken, articulate. Mary seemed to be very believable and very passionate about her cause.
Mary Thompson was larger than life in personality. She was very boisterous. She was very confident.
All right.
Had a loud voice. She could speak gang language as well as the most dedicated gang member in any city. She could talk the talk and walk the walk.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming.
When police and city leaders form an anti-gang task force, Mary's a prominent part of it.
Mary had a very personal story about how the gang stole her son from their family. And so Mary's chosen role was to share her story with other parents.
My son was about 9 years old. First, it started off with him being late for school, not showing up, getting bad grades. Then it just progressed over time to being in trouble with the law.
Mary not only shares her story with parents, her home is a safe haven for kids who are trying to avoid gang life.
They would meet at her house instead of going out in the park. And so she became more and more involved with them on a daily basis.
I thought Mary was fantastic. I thought this was a pretty dynamic woman to do this step up. You know, where most people, when they're, like her son got into trouble, she didn't, hide in her house. She wasn't ashamed. She just stood up and said, my son did this, and I want to let people know that this is happening out there.
If we clean up the gangs, we keep the kids off the street, and we have a safer community.
And it was like, here I am. Use me as you need to.
What the kids don't know is that Mary sometimes feeds tips to the police.
Also, if you go down to the park tomorrow night at about 10:30,
She'd be able to oftentimes give them information about things that had happened that would lead the police quickly to the right people.
just let me know. And if I receive any more tips, I will also let you know.
We made arrests behind the information that she provided.
Investigators look to Mary for help in the Itura case, hoping she can point them to possible suspects.
One of my kids was telling me about this gang member.
Mary Thompson provided several leads. The most significant one was this gentleman named Sonny from Portland.
From my understanding, he lives around Portland area. Surfer type of kid. Drives a 60 to mid-60s Impala, and he's really bad news.
Mary tells detectives that Sonny, a gangster, came to her a week before the murder. He asked where Aaron lived and wanted a picture of him.
She gave some car descriptions and some background information that the police tried to investigate.
Police in Portland's gang unit find no one named Sonny who matches that description. It's a dead end.
No one seems to know who Sonny is.
This information that Mary had given the detectives was not panning out.
Then investigators finally get their big break, but it doesn't come from Mary. Detective Mashad hears rumors that two former gang members, kids who hang out at Mary Thompson's house, have been bragging about a killing.
Gentlemen, I think you know why I'm here today, don't you?
We went out and talked to those kids, and that's where the name Elstad and Brown first popped up.
Jim Elstad, 17, and Joe Brown, 18, have been boasting to gang friends that they killed Aaron.
You know, me and Joe take care of our little Aaron problem, if you know what I mean.
They are two young men Mary had been trying to save from gang life.
The department received several tips that Elstad and Brown had been involved in the murder.
Then, before detectives can even act on the lead, Mary Thompson returns to the police station with information that seems to corroborate the story. She tells them the two boys, Brown and Elstad, came to her the very night Aaron was murdered.
They had a gun, and they wanted me to help get rid of it.
Her timing is perfect. The information could be the key to bringing Aaron Itura's killers to justice. Investigators pick up Elstad and Brown for questioning.
You confess right here and right now. Maybe we can work something out.
I didn't do anything.
The goal when Brown and Elstad were brought to the police department was to gain a confession.
I don't recall anything.
What gun? I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't do anything. I'm innocent.
You are an accessory. You were there.
No, I didn't kill anybody.
After hours of interrogation, both young men finally confess.
Jim had the gun.
I killed him.
To be sure they understand exactly how Aaron Itura was killed, police take Joe Brown back to the crime scene and talk him through what happened that night. Joe Brown says he was the lookout. Jim Elstad pulled the trigger.
So we walked back to Jim's house, put the bandanas on, and then walked back later about 1:30, 1:45, and I Turner and his girlfriend were sleeping on the bed. That's when we came through the garage door, and that's when I Turner was shot.
But what was their motive? When pressed, Elstad and Brown reveal information that points to a new suspect. A suspect so outrageous, no one could have imagined it. The first gang-related murder ever to happen in the quiet college town of Eugene, Oregon seems solved. Aaron Itura's killers have now confessed to the crime. Jim Elstad shot Aaron while Joe Brown stood lookout. But when these two former gang members explain why they wanted Aaron dead, this case turns extraordinary.
You're just a little mama's boy? Is that what this is what it is?
No.
It begins with Mary Thompson, the anti-gang activist. She has a troubled son named Bo.
Bo has an incredible past criminal background that started, I believe, when he was about 9. And he's just been in and out of trouble ever since.
He was incarcerated frequently in the juvenile system.
It was Bo's troubles that first got Mary involved in fighting gangs.
One of the things that made Mary's story so compelling is that her son, who was very young, was drawn into the gang world and was starting to do some pretty significant crimes.
Mary was doing her best to stop him.
Once when Bo had an outstanding warrant, she actually turned him in to the police.
How can you do this to me, Mom? Mom!
In fact, to help Bo stay out of trouble, Mary recruited Aaron Itura to join the anti-gang task force.
She called and said, "Hi, I'm Mary Thompson. I'm in this anti-gang thing, and I was wondering if we could work out something where Aaron could help me, because I understand that the kids all listen to him."
I would really, really love it if you could hang out with them and talk to them.
More than willing to give my time to you, Mary. You know that.
From then on, even though he worked with other gang members, Aaron gave special attention to Bo.
Aaron, who was much larger in size, kind of looked out for Bo, who was smaller in stature. And when they chummed around, they were kind of partners.
High five, man.
Aaron was willing, when some event would happen, to try to talk Bo into making a choice that didn't involve doing something that was antisocial.
3 weeks before the murder, Bo is involved in a street fight and pulls a knife. Aaron tries to protect Bo.
Who did it?
Yeah, the guy in the green right there.
The guy in the green? You? Right there?
No, it was me. I did
him?
Yeah.
Itura tried to claim that he was the one that had the knife. And he tried to take the blame for Bo to keep him out of trouble.
Despite Aaron's efforts, both he and Bo are arrested. If they're found guilty, Bo will go to a juvenile facility until he's 18. But Aaron faces prison time. Does he risk a jail sentence to protect Bo, or let him accept the consequences of his actions?
And he goes, "Mama, Bo did this for no reason whatsoever, walked up and cut this kid." And he says, "I can't help him anymore."
Aaron decides to testify against Bo. To Mary Thompson, it's an outright betrayal.
I gotta testify. It's what's right. You testify against my son, so help me God, you'll be sorry.
She was just so angry. How could he do this against their friend Bo? And Aaron goes, "I'm just trying to help him. He needs to be accountable."
But Joe Brown says she told the gang a very different version of the fight. In fact, she changed it entirely.
Aaron is the one that had the knife. Now he is lying to the cops.
Mary Thompson, who is known as Moms, tells Elstad and Brown that because of Aaron, Bo is locked up.
Mom's was really, really pissed off about it. Very pissed off about it because her son got locked up because of something that Turner said that wasn't true. And Mom said she really, really loved to see Itura dead. And we took that upon ourselves, basically.
Did Mary push them into murder? Neither Elstad nor Brown says that she actually told them to kill Aaron. Maybe they misunderstood her. But now, Mary's character is in question. A background check reveals she may not be who she claims to be. In other cities, Mary has had numerous run-ins with the law.
I found that her entire life was nothing more than one lie after another lie after another lie.
To get more information, investigators lean hard on gang members. When they refuse to talk, investigators put a wiretap on Mary Thompson's phone.
How much did you get? Good job.
They get an earful. They learn that Mary, the public face of Eugene's anti-gang force, is in fact deeply involved in the gang herself.
What we began to realize is that she was no longer Bo's mom. She was becoming the gang mom.
This is mind-blowing stuff. But it's so unexpected, there are plenty of skeptics, even in the police department.
The command staff that was part of that gang task force did not believe us when we said Mary's involvement in the murder was substantial and possibly the orchestrator of it.
She was complimenting kids on the crimes they committed, and how she would like to see the stuff that they stole, and talking about what kinds of drugs they were using and how they could get them.
It's beyond shocking. A 40-something mom leading a gang of teenage kids into hardcore crime?
She got so much emotional reward for this relationship with these kids where they idolized her.
Police listen in on nearly 2,000 calls. Mary Thompson can't shut up.
Hello, Mary here. You know, maybe we should go out and celebrate. What's next on the agenda? Hey, you guys are hitting the big time. Oh, really? What mini-mart?
They called up and planned things with her, and she was really enjoying the role of being the kingpin, the Ma Barker of this group.
Police even hear Thompson threaten a young gang member.
You're gonna get what Aaron got if you don't cut it out.
Those threats confirm everything for investigators. The gang-fighting hero of Eugene is a very unusual suspect. But even those who had supported her now have no doubt. Mary Thompson is behind the murder of Aaron Itura.
When it became clear that the major motivation for this crime was the elimination of Itura as a witness, then the focus went back to the person who had the most to gain from that.
And that is undeniably Mary Thompson.
Until Mary poisoned the minds of the gang members, there was no reason at all for those two young men to go kill him. They didn't have anything against him.
But threats, a compelling motive, and evidence of other crimes aren't enough to convict Mary of Aaron's murder. Investigators need to get one of the gang members to flip on her.
Gotta find the weak link, get some dirt, and lean on him hard.
He had several felony criminal cases against them pending, and so we pressured them in exchange for information. They provided information on Mary Thompson.
A 14-year-old girl who hangs out with the gang is the first to cave. She quickly gives up everything she's got on Thompson.
It was Mary. Mary told those guys to kill Aaron.
Her information included the fact that she was present when Mary Thompson had ordered the hit on Aaron Itura.
It's just what Jim Michaud needs.
She was ordered by Mary the night of the murder to call the Itura house to see if Aaron Itura was home. And after she found that out, she called Jim Elstad and said that he's there and it's time to go get him.
Afterward, Mary helps them get rid of the murder weapon.
I checked the gun, I checked the ammo, I checked the cigarettes, ran up to the truck, jumped in the truck. Mom just took me home.
Mary Thompson is arrested, and the public is astonished.
This had been a very visible figure who seemingly was doing positive things and trying to get good outcomes for kids. And here she is charged with the murder of a teenager. It was shocking.
It's almost unheard of that a lady who is a crime fighter, who professes to be an example to the community, to become the leader of a criminal organization.
Did Mary Thompson plan on leading a gang from the beginning? Or did she get seduced by money and control along the way?
I think Mary Thompson's behavior was a way for her to get status and to feel power.
Though Mary never confesses, once she's arrested, many gang members talk. It makes it easy for police to piece together the events that ended in murder. Mary finds out Aaron is going to testify against her son. She threatens him. When that fails, she sets out to kill him.
At one point, she dressed herself up in the blue colors of the Crip gang and stood outside Aaron's bedroom apartment with a knife in her hand, ready to stab him, as she said, in the kidneys. That plan only didn't work because Aaron left with 2 or 3 other friends.
She tells her young gang members about her attempt, hoping to motivate them to kill Aaron.
She was using that as an example. Look, if I'm willing to do it, why are you guys such cowards?
It works. The gang comes up with a perfect murder weapon, a .38 revolver, and a plan.
And it was kind of at that point where Elstad said, look, just give me the gun. I'm going to go deal with it myself.
On the night of October 3rd, 1994, everything is in place. Brown acts as lookout. Elstad enters through an unlocked door.
Aaron and his girlfriend are sleeping in their bed. The intruders essentially assassinated Aaron by shooting him in the back of the head.
Elstad and Brown run off, and Mary helps them ditch the evidence.
I don't know that Mary ever had remorse. When Mary did something, she always felt righteous about what she was doing.
Good morning, Summer and Jordan. I am right here on the corner of Division and Lawrence Street, just a few feet away from where the deadly shooting actually took place. And so far, we are just learning that one person has died overnight and the other person is still in the hospital at this time. One person has been detained for questioning, but this shooting happened just around 2 a.m. this morning, where our officers arrived on scene to find 2 victims inside of a car suffering from gunshot wounds. What if I told you that on February 26, 2025, a father made a phone call to 911, not because he needed help, but because he was about to destroy his own family at exactly 2 a.m., while most of Mishawaka, Indiana was fast asleep. Gnarls Brown Sr. did something that would haunt investigators for months. He picked up his phone, dialed emergency services, and then grabbed a semi-automatic handgun from his closet. But here's what'll mess with your head. He wasn't calling for protection. He was calling to get cops to his house faster, because he knew what he was about to do. 22-year-old Aisha Phillips had no idea she was living her final moments. She was at what should have been a safe space, a family birthday party on Division Street. The kind of neighborhood where, according to locals, nothing bad ever happens. The kind of place where you'd expect laughter, cake, and maybe some family drama over who gets the last slice of pizza. Instead, Asia found herself caught in the crossfire of a father-son argument that was about to turn deadly. Tyrese Brown, 23 years old, probably thought the worst thing that could happen that night was an awkward conversation with his dad. He had no clue that his own father, the man who raised him, who was supposed to protect him, was about to hunt him down like prey. But here's where this story gets really twisted. When that argument started heating up, when voices got raised and tempers flared, Gnarls didn't just lose control. He made a choice. He walked to his closet, grabbed his weapon, made that 911 call, and then followed his son and Asia outside to finish what he started. Joshua Chips was up late playing video games when he heard something that would change his perspective on his quiet neighborhood forever. Ten gunshots. 4 shots, then a pause that probably felt like an eternity, then 6 more. He watched a car speed down his street, not knowing he just witnessed the aftermath of a father's betrayal. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever been at a family gathering where you felt genuine fear? Because what happened next proves that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's supposed to love you most. By the time police arrived 5 minutes later, Asia Phillips was dead from a single gunshot to the chest. Tyrese Brown was fighting for his life with 3 bullet wounds, and Gnarls Brown Sr. was hiding behind a house, like the coward he'd become. But the question that'll keep you up tonight is this: What could possibly drive a father to call 911 and then execute his own son's girlfriend? Let's talk about the three people whose lives collided on Division Street that night, because understanding who they were makes this tragedy even more devastating. Asia Phillips was just 22 years old and pregnant. Think about that for a second, 22. She was barely out of college age, probably still figuring out her life, her career, her future. What we know about Asia paints the picture of a young woman who was serious about her relationship with Tyrese. Serious enough to be invited to family gatherings. Serious enough to be sitting at that birthday party, probably thinking she was building relationships with her boyfriend's family. She was living in or frequently visiting Mishawaka, which means she'd made this place part of her world. This wasn't some casual hookup or brief fling. Asia was integrated into Tyrese's life, into his family circle. She trusted these people enough to be vulnerable around them, to let her guard down at what should have been a celebration. Now let's talk about Tyrese Brown, 23 years old. This guy was about to learn the hardest lesson anyone can learn, that blood doesn't always mean safety. Tyrese was the son, the bridge between Asia and the Brown family. He brought his girlfriend to his family's party, probably proud to have her there, maybe even thinking about a future together, but Tyrese had no idea he was walking into a nightmare. He had no clue that his own father saw him as a target, not a son. When that argument started, Tyrese probably thought it was just typical family drama. Maybe they'd had disagreements before, maybe his dad had a temper. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for what was coming. And then there's the man who turned a birthday party into a crime scene. Gnarls Brown Sr., 45 years old. This is the guy who should have been the protector, the patriarch, the one keeping everyone safe. Instead, he became the predator. Gnarls wasn't some stranger who broke into their lives. He wasn't a random criminal or a home invader. He was family. He was the host of this party. This was his house, his celebration, his gun, his choice to destroy everything. What kind of man keeps a semi-automatic handgun in his closet and then uses it on his own son? What kind of father looks at his child's girlfriend and decides she needs to die? These aren't heat-of-the-moment decisions when you're making 911 calls first. The relationship dynamics here are what make this case so disturbing. This wasn't gang violence or a robbery gone wrong. This was a family dinner that turned into an execution. Asia trusted Gnarls because he was her boyfriend's father. Tyrese trusted him because, well, that's his dad. Pause the video and tell me, do you think family members are more dangerous than strangers because statistically, you're more likely to be hurt by someone you know than someone you don't? But here's what nobody at that party knew. Gnarls Brown Sr. was about to prove that the most dangerous person in any room might be the one sitting at the head of the table. The birthday celebration was about to become a funeral, and none of them saw it coming. Nobody knows what triggered it. That's the terrifying part about this whole thing. Somewhere between the birthday cake and family small talk, something shifted. Something dark. Something that would turn a father into a killer. Court documents tell us that Gnarls Brown Sr. and his son Tyrese started arguing during the party, but they don't tell us why. Was it about money? About Asia? About some old family grudge that had been festering for years? We may never know what lit that fuse. But what happened next is documented in chilling detail. The argument wasn't just getting heated, it was escalating fast. And here's where Gnarls made a choice that separates him from every other angry parent who's ever had words with their kid. Instead of walking away, instead of cooling down, instead of being the adult in the room, he walked to his closet. Think about that moment. He had to physically leave the argument. Go to another room, open his closet door, and grab a semi-automatic handgun. That's not a split-second decision. That's not losing control. That's making a conscious choice to arm yourself against your own family. But wait, it gets worse. Before Gnarls fired a single shot, before he even confronted his son with that weapon, he did something that proves this wasn't about rage or losing control. He called 911. Not after the shooting, not during some panic, before. He picked up his phone and called emergency services, allegedly to get police to the scene quicker. Let that sink in. This man was planning his violence. He was thinking ahead, strategizing, making sure law enforcement would be there to witness whatever he was about to do. That's not the behavior of someone who's snapped. That's the behavior of someone who wanted an audience for his destruction. Meanwhile, Tyrese and Asia had no idea what was coming. They probably thought the argument was over when Gnarls walked away. Maybe they were relieved. Maybe they were planning to leave early to avoid more drama. Maybe Asia was asking Tyrese if his dad was always like this. They had no clue that the man who just left the room was coming back, armed and ready to kill. When Gnarls returned with that gun, the dynamic changed instantly. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was a hostage situation. Tyrese and Asia did what any rational people would do. They tried to get out. They headed for the door, probably thinking they could escape, maybe drive away and let things cool down. But Gnarls wasn't done. He followed them outside, weapon in hand, continuing the argument that had now become a hunt. Joshua Chips was 3 houses down, controller in his hands, completely absorbed in his video game when the night exploded. First he heard 4 gunshots, sharp, loud, unmistakable. Then, silence. A pause that probably lasted seconds but felt like forever. Then 6 more shots. Chips dropped his controller and ran to his window. He saw a car speeding down Division Street, probably someone fleeing the scene, maybe someone trying to get help, maybe just someone trying to survive. What Chips didn't know was that he'd just heard the sound of a family being destroyed. Those 10 shots weren't random violence or gang activity. They were a father executing his son's girlfriend and trying to kill his own child. The silver Chevrolet Impala that Asia and Tyrese had tried to escape in became their tomb. By the time those shots stopped ringing out, Asia Phillips was dying from a single gunshot wound to her chest, and Tyrese Brown was bleeding from 3 bullet wounds. Wondering how his own father had become his attempted murderer. 5 minutes later, when police sirens started wailing down Division Street, it was already too late for Asia. But for Tyrese, those 5 minutes meant the difference between life and death. The birthday party was over. The nightmare had just begun. At 2:00 a.m. on February 26, 2025, Mishawaka police got a call that would haunt them forever. Shots fired. People screaming. Division Street had just become a war zone, but here's what makes this case absolutely bone-chilling. By the time that 911 call came in from neighbors, Gnarls Brown Sr. had already made his own call to emergency services. He'd already grabbed his gun. He'd already decided that his son and Asia Phillips needed to die. When officers raced down Division Street with sirens blaring, they had no idea they were responding to a father's betrayal. They thought they were dealing with typical street violence, maybe a robbery, maybe gang activity. Instead, they found something that would shake even seasoned cops to their core. The silver Chevrolet Impala sat on Division Street like a metal coffin. Inside, 2 young people were bleeding out, victims of the man who was supposed to protect at least one of them. Asia Phillips was slumped in that car, a single gunshot wound to her chest stealing her last breath. 22 years old, and her life was over because she'd trusted the wrong family. She'd come to a birthday party and ended up in a morgue. The medical examiner would later confirm what everyone already knew. She died at the scene. No hospital run, no fighting chance, no last words. Just gone. But Tyrese Brown was still fighting. 3 bullet wounds, blood everywhere, but somehow still alive. His own father had pumped 3 rounds into him, and he was still breathing. Think about the strength it takes to survive that kind of betrayal. Not just the physical trauma, but the psychological destruction of knowing your dad tried to execute you. The paramedics worked frantically to stabilize Tyrese, knowing that every second counted. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, where surgeons would spend hours trying to undo the damage his father had inflicted. 3 bullets, 3 separate wounds, 3 attempts by Gnarls Brown Sr. to end his own son's life. While medical teams fought to save Tyrese, police were hunting for the shooter. They didn't have to look far. Gnarls Brown Sr. wasn't running. He wasn't speeding away in some getaway car. He wasn't trying to flee the state or disappear into the night. They found him hiding behind a house near the scene, like a coward who just realized what he'd done. When detectives brought him in for questioning, Gnarls didn't lawyer up. He didn't claim self-defense. He didn't make excuses or try to spin some story about how this was all a misunderstanding. He confessed. According to court documents, Gnarls Brown Sr. told investigators exactly what he'd done. "I fired at my son first, then turned toward Asia Phillips and shot her." Read that again. "I fired at my son first." His own child was target number 1. Then he turned his weapon on a 22-year-old woman who'd done nothing except date his son and show up to a family party. The confession reveals the cold calculation behind this violence. Gnarls didn't just lose control and start shooting randomly. He had a sequence, a plan. Son first, girlfriend second, maximum family destruction in minimum time. But here's what really messes with your head. Gnarls had called 911 before any of this happened. He'd made that call knowing he was about to commit murder. He wanted police there quickly, but not to stop him. Maybe he wanted witnesses. Maybe he wanted to control the narrative. Maybe he wanted to make sure someone found the bodies fast. Whatever his reasoning, that 911 call proves this wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated execution disguised as family drama. Joshua Chip, still processing what he'd witnessed, told reporters something that should chill everyone. "It's a peaceful neighborhood. Lately, for the past few years, it's actually been pretty peaceful, and everything like there hasn't been really any bad situations." Saying, ambulance, well, I ended up seeing them bring out bodies from the house to come around starting, but lately for the past few years, it's actually been pretty peaceful and everything. Like, there hasn't been really any bad changes. I hope it becomes a better place for the children of the next generation. That's all I can say. That's the thing about family violence. It happens in peaceful neighborhoods. It happens at birthday parties. It happens when you least expect it, from the people you trust most. Real talk. If you were Tyrese, could you ever forgive your father? Hit the comments and let me know where you draw the line, because this story is about to get even more twisted. By the time the sun came up on February 27th, Asia Phillips was dead, Tyrese Brown was fighting for his life in surgery, and Gnarls Brown Sr. was sitting in a jail cell, probably wondering how a birthday party had turned him into a double shooter. But the worst part, this was just the beginning of the legal nightmare that would follow. The St. Joseph County Prosecutor's Office didn't waste time. They hit Gnarls with charges that could put him away for the rest of his natural life. Murder of Asia Phillips, attempted murder of Tyrese Brown, and here's the kicker, firearm enhancement charges, which basically means they're throwing the book at him for using a gun to destroy his own family. Do the math on those charges. If convicted on everything, Gnarls Brown Sr. is looking at up to 125 years in prison. That's not just a life sentence. That's multiple lifetimes. That's the justice system saying, you don't get to come back from this. But let's talk about what the investigation actually uncovered, because the details are what separate this from your typical family dispute gone wrong. First, there's that 911 call. Court documents confirm that Gnarls called emergency services before he started shooting. Not during, not after, before. That single phone call destroys any argument about this being a heat-of-the-moment crime. You don't call police and then commit murder unless you're planning something specific. The witness statements paint a picture that's even more disturbing. People at that birthday party watched a normal family argument transform into something deadly. They saw Gnarls leave the room, probably thinking he was cooling off, only to return armed and dangerous. Then there's the pursuit angle. This wasn't a shooting that happened in the heat of an argument. When Therese and Asia tried to escape, when they headed outside, probably thinking they could drive away and let things settle down, Gnarls followed them. He hunted them down like they were prey instead of family. The weapon itself tells a story. A semi-automatic handgun stored in his closet, easily accessible. This wasn't some random gun he found lying around. This was his weapon in his house at his party. He knew exactly where it was and exactly how to use it. But here's what really seals the deal. Gnarls' own words to investigators. He didn't just admit to the shooting, he gave them a play-by-play. I fired at my son first, then turned toward Asia Phillips and shot her. That's not the statement of someone who lost control. That's the confession of someone who executed a plan. The autopsy, scheduled for February 27th in Kalamazoo, would confirm what everyone already knew. Asia Phillips died from that single gunshot wound to her chest. One bullet, perfectly placed, instantly fatal. Meanwhile, Tyrese survived 3 gunshot wounds and surgery, proving that sometimes survival is just a matter of inches and luck. The crime scene investigation backed up everything Gnarls confessed to. The silver Chevrolet Impala told the story of 2 people trying to escape and failing. The blood evidence, the bullet trajectories, the witness statements, everything lined up with a father who'd decided his son and his son's girlfriend needed to die. Police made sure to tell the community this was an isolated incident, that there was no ongoing threat. But how do you tell a neighborhood that the threat was never some outside danger? It was coming from inside one of their own homes. The formal charges came down fast and hard. Murder. Attempted murder. Firearm enhancement. Each charge carrying decades of potential prison time. Each one representing a life destroyed by Gnarls Brown Sr.'s choices. His initial court appearance was scheduled for March 6, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. That's when this case would officially enter the justice system, when lawyers would start arguing about whether a father who confessed to shooting his son and killing his son's girlfriend deserves any mercy at all. But here's the question that investigators couldn't answer. The one that would haunt this case forever. What could possibly drive a 45-year-old father to make that 911 call, grab that gun, and destroy his own family at a birthday party? Some answers, it turns out, are more terrifying than the questions themselves. Here's what nobody wants to talk about. The people most likely to hurt you aren't strangers lurking in dark alleys. They're sitting at your dinner table. Asia Phillips learned this the hardest way possible. She trusted Gnarls Brown Sr. because he was her boyfriend's father. She felt safe at that birthday party because it was family. That trust killed her. The National Domestic Violence Hotline confirms what this case proves. Escalation happens fast, and it happens most often within families. Arguments become threats, threats become weapons, weapons become funerals. But there's something uniquely twisted about this case. Most domestic violence involves partners or spouses. This was a father targeting his son's girlfriend, someone outside the immediate family, who got caught in crossfire she never saw coming. The presence of that semi-automatic handgun turned what could have been a shouting match into a double shooting. Without that weapon, maybe Gnarls throws some punches, maybe someone calls the cops, maybe everyone goes home, angry, but alive. Instead, Asia Phillips is dead. Tyrese Brown is traumatized forever, and an entire community is asking the same question. If you can't trust family, who can you trust? Sometimes the monster isn't hiding under the bed, it's hosting the birthday party. March 6, 2025, 8:30 a.m. That's when Gnarls Brown Sr. would face a judge for the first time since destroying his family. Sitting in that courtroom, he'd no longer be a father or a party host. He'd be defendant, facing 125 years behind bars. But what about the survivor? Tyrese Brown underwent surgery and survived. But imagine living with that reality. Your own father tried to execute you. 3 bullets meant for your heart, and somehow you're still breathing. How do you process that level of betrayal? How do you trust anyone ever again? Asia Phillips' family got a phone call no parent should ever receive. Their 22-year-old daughter was dead because she went to her boyfriend's birthday party. She trusted the wrong family, and it cost her everything. Division Street returned to its peaceful reputation, but Joshua Chips and other neighbors know the truth now. Evil doesn't announce itself with warning signs. It shows up at birthday parties with cake and presents and semi-automatic handguns. The legal system will decide Gnarls' fate, but some questions will never get answers. What triggered that argument? What made a father become a killer? Sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones who raised you. If this case shook you to your core, if it made you question everyone sitting around your family table, then you're starting to understand the real horror of true crime. It's not the stranger in the mask. It's the person passing you the mashed potatoes. But here's what'll really keep you up tonight. Gnarls Brown Sr. isn't unique. Right now, in quiet neighborhoods just like Division Street, there are fathers, mothers, siblings, and relatives who are one argument away from becoming killers. The only difference is, we don't know their names yet. Asia Phillips thought she was safe because it was family. Tyrese Brown thought his father would protect him, not hunt him down with a semi-automatic handgun. They were both wrong, and that mistake cost one of them everything. The scariest part about this case isn't the violence. It's how normal everything seemed until it wasn't. A birthday party, a family argument, a father who kept a gun in his closet. All perfectly ordinary things that became the ingredients for murder. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now because these stories matter. They show us the darkness that can hide behind the most ordinary faces, in the most peaceful neighborhoods, at the most innocent gatherings. Drop a comment and tell me what's the most disturbing family secret you've ever discovered. Sometimes, the person tucking you in at night is the same person planning your funeral. Sweet dreams.